Hi, I'm Bob from pvcpipeprojects.co.uk, and in this video we're going to have a look at how to make your structures sturdy. Having your structure sturdy is something that's quite important. The bigger the structure is, the more likely the whole thing's going to move. Although we look at this PVC pipe and we think it's absolutely solid and doesn't bend at all, once you get a length of it of maybe 6 foot or 2 meters or even a meter, it will bend and flex a little bit. I'm just bending that and it's flexing just a little bit. You get a bit of flex on there, a bit of flex on there, a bit of flex all around, and in the end that can lead to quite a lot of flex, especially if it's a big structure. So what we're going to have a look at is how we can make those kind of structures more sturdy and more permanent. So I've got a little sort of half-built structure here. So the first option we have is to fix it to the wall or to the floor. Now, as you can see, these fittings around here, I'm using 3-way elbows around the cube, but on this one I've got a 4-way, and what that enables me to do is put an end cap on the end, and I could drill a hole through the end cap. I could bolt that onto the wall using a roll bolt or even using a roll plug for a smaller fixture, and then I can push my pipe into that, and that's going to hold the structure. You only need a couple of fixings onto the wall, and all of a sudden your structure becomes really rigid and really solid. Okay, you don't need to fix every single corner. It's only one, perhaps one in that plane and one in that plane. Another way we can do it is to use what's called a table cap. Now, a table cap was invented and is used for literally having a piece of pipe coming up, and so you can put a disc on top like a little bar table around a pool or something like that, which is what they're used for. But they also have other uses. As you can see, they've got 3 holes around them, which means we don't have to drill the end of it. So we can fix that onto the wall or onto the floor or even onto the ceiling if it's really big structure, and then we can just push our pipe in, and again that's going to give us that anchor point which is going to hold our structure really solid. Sometimes we can't bolt onto the wall, we can't bolt onto the floor, and we can't bolt onto the ceiling. What we want is either a freestanding structure in the middle of nowhere, or we want a structure which we can take apart and put back together, but we want to get that rigidity into it. A good example of structures like that are large photo booths that people make to take to weddings, and you'll have a large booth made up out of the plastic pipe, and then there'll be drapes which are coming down the plastic pipe either side. When you get that big, something big enough to take me, I'm over 6 foot, and the whole thing's wobbling around and moving around, especially if it's outside in the wind, we need a way to make that sturdy. And the way to do that is to use a fitting called a slip tee. So what a slip tee does, as you can see on one end of it, it's completely blocked off, it's just a socket, and on the other end you can push your finger right through and there's no landing, no stop for the pipe to stop on at all. So what this does, exactly as the name says, is it slips and it gives you a T coming off at any angle you want. If we get 2 slip tees and a piece of pipe in between, we can get a bracing piece going across our system. There we go. Now that looks pretty clunky because this is a small unit and you wouldn't normally use such heavy bracing on a small unit like this, but on a big photo booth or something like that, to have a piece of bracing come across it. And remember, if we use the 4 ways, so if we had a 4-way there and a 4-way on the bottom here, the bracing could be outside our structure, so we can still hang down whatever covering we want on the front of here and the bracing's on the outside, but that bracing really stops any movement at all and any flexing at all. So that's a great way to get it really braced, really solid. You don't even have to glue it or anything like that, it'll just hold in place, but it'll make your structure much more solid. If you did want to fix it in place and you want a more permanent, really solid system, I'd recommend gluing all your fittings together. Don't glue your slip tees because they're pretty impossible to glue, because if you put glue on them, you're then going to slide it along and it's going to smear that glue all the way along your pipe. And just to put a piece of glue there and push it along doesn't really glue it very well. So the best thing to do with a slip tee is, I've got something down here which is going to do the job, is use a little drill bit, a 3mm drill bit, and use this little rivet here. And what this has a piece which pops out of it, and when it goes in it expands it a little bit. So if we drill into our fitting and through into our pipe, we push the bottom piece through and then we push the top rivet down, and it just gives us this tiny little white mushroom which you can hardly see on the top, and that really holds it in position and again holds it hard. The other lovely thing about these is that you can take them out. You can take the middle bit out and you can take the piece out the pipe and then you can slide it out again. So there we have it, a few ways of how to make your structures more sturdy. Remember, the bigger the structures are, the more they need to be made sturdy. For example, I've got a tiny little box here which has been made. That doesn't need to be made sturdy at all. There's no bend, no movement in that at all. But as we get bigger and bigger and bigger, we start to get a bit more flex, and we need to think about, from an engineering point of view, how we're going to make that sturdy. Thanks for watching. Bye.